One of the biggest fears that a active and affirming mother has for her daughter, especially if she didn't get that from her mother, is to leave her daughter in the world to fend for herself. And that's exactly what we saw unfold in Meg Thee Stallion's new documentary, In Her Words. My name is Dr. Dalicia. I'm a licensed therapist and a mother-daughter trauma recovery expert. And I focus solely on everything mother-daughter trauma. So this is Mother-Daughter Trauma Recovery TV, and every single show we produce is featured to help women understand and also navigate the manifestations of their conflict with their mother wounds, and also mother-daughter trauma. And that's exactly what we're gonna do on today's episode of What Would Therapy Do? We're taking a pop culture couple, a mother-daughter duo, which is Meg Thee Stallion and her mother Holly, and we're gonna psychoanalyze the film and also psychoanalyze their relationship. So let's get right into it. The biggest reason I wanted to bring this video to my audience is to show what a healthy mother-daughter relationship looks like. We spend so much time talking about going no contact, estranging from your mom, but we need the opposite end of the spectrum too, so that we can compare and contrast. So I think that Megan and Holly did a beautiful job and they weren't trying to do a job, right? This is just who they are, but it was a beautiful depiction of their relationship. It's mutually rewarding, it was fulfilling, and also it was productive, which are three very important adjectives that describe a healthy mother-daughter bond. It's something that's satisfying to both parties, it's something that both parties get enjoyment from, and it's also something that moves the needle and creates a legacy for that unit. Now, Megan and her mom's relationship was not absent of conflict, and we'll certainly dive into that later. But I really want to focus on therapeutic themes that I noticed as I was watching the video, and kind of how those tie into what we can do as mothers to better prepare our daughters for life without us. So the first theme that I saw present was that people were not accustomed to feelings of insecurity or self-doubt or just any of that coming from someone who looked like Megan. And obviously she can't help what she looks like. She's inky, she's beautiful, she's statuesque, she's bold. You know, she comes across as such a confident person. And the world sees those traits and they think, okay, well, you appear like this, so you must be like this in all spaces in your life. But something I really noticed is that Megan's human. You know, she's very human, just like the rest of us. She has her times where she doubts herself, where she needs reassurance from the people around her, where she needs a lot of validation, where she's asking questions that are like, girl, of course you did amazing. You know, where she's looking at her pictures after she is done with a concert, or looking at the video clippings of a concert she literally just walked off the stage from, and analyzing herself and saying, we need to do this better, this better, this better. So it was just very clear to me that she's a person, and I don't think that people were prepared for her to do that. Also, what I noticed in that is that her mom was her safe space. So losing her mom made her look to the world for validation. It made her look to them for her humanness, and almost look to people who were dangerous. We all know the world is an unsafe place to go to try and determine who you are. People are going to change their opinion about you based on their feelings. They're going to be different people who think different things. It's just not something that can be stable. So that brings me to my first point about how we can prep our daughters for our death. We have to have regular conversations with our daughters about death and dying, our absence, what that looks like. Because if life cycle actually plays out the way it should, they're going to eventually face the loss of us. And that loss is going to present them with a gaping hole that they have to fill with other people. So the purpose of that kind of conversation would be to pretty much just prepare them for, how do I build community and safe space that resembles what I got from you, even though it may never fill the shoes of it? How do I do it in a way that protects me and keeps me able to be my full self without danger coming into play? Now, I know we all saw Kelsey, which was Meg's best friend, and how that relationship played out. And I'll say, as I was watching clips of their friendship, I was like, oh wow, they were really, really solid. This was a tight homegirl who, you know, her mom even knew, like her mom endorsed this person. So of course it would be natural for her to gravitate toward her after the death. She would have had a understanding, you know, in those times you're looking for someone you don't have to explain the person to. They get why that was such a monumental loss in your life. So it would have been natural for her. So I'm not saying that the relationship in itself had any red flags that presented themselves. What I'm saying is, if Meg's mom would have had a conversation, maybe passing down a verbal guidebook of what sort of characteristics to look for, in someone, or even just how to navigate grief and loss in a way that is calculated and doesn't trauma bond you to people. Another theme I noticed is that Meg stood on women's empowerment business, okay? Crazy thing is, I watched this movie, I put my daughters down for bed, and then I watched it at night, so I went to sleep right after. And I actually had a dream that me and Meg were friends. It was like, it just really gave homegirl. Like, this is somebody who has your back, and just could not fathom not supporting her friend in the way that she was not supported by Kelsey. So that was glaringly obvious to me. And when I see that sort of love depicted from a woman to another woman, it shows me that they were raised right. Either you got the manifestations of your trauma narrowed down and you've healed through them, which I can say that I've done and I help other women do, or you just grew up like that. Like, you came from a crop where women were celebrated, they were supported, they were loved, they were protected. And that was very obvious for me, that Meg's mom set a standard for how she should navigate her relationships with women, and that was extremely beautiful to watch. Now, there wasn't a lot of information or kind of insight given on how it was to grieve the loss of a friend after just losing your mom. And this person had now become, sort of your person. So you lost your person, then you make another person your person, and then you lose that person. I think that, the therapist in me would have loved to see more about how that grieving process was for Meg. But one thing that it showed me is that she had trust issues, naturally so. Like, I gave you my all, Kelsey, and you literally blundered it. So she definitely had trust issues, and she started searching. She started searching for, love in all the wrong places, on social media, in the comment section, in the support of people who are in her industry, just being blindsided by all of the negative hatred and commentary that she was getting on social media, all the men who were popping up in support of Tory Lanez. It was a lot for her to handle and to rectify. And that's one of the beauties of having a stable support system, is you honestly don't care what the people online are saying, because it doesn't matter to you. So with Meg losing all of that in, almost one swoop, she needed people to stand in the gap for her. And that brings me to our second way that we can prepare our daughters for our absence or our death. Number 2 would be that we can start to tell them why we see in them instead of what we see in them. So what do you mean by that, Alicia? What I mean is that a lot of times we give people compliments. We're like, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, you're so talented. Oh, you did a great job. And we saw that happen a whole lot when Meg was being honored by her mother as she, took on her career and things like that. We saw Meg's mom do that a whole lot. She was extremely affirming. What that does, though, is that it creates a system where the person has to come to you to get the validation, because they don't understand the thought pattern behind it. So if Meg's mom would have, instead of saying, you did a good job, pointed out, this is what I am using to determine that you did a good job, like these are the characteristics that I saw displayed as you were performing, then Meg would have had almost a recipe to be able to determine whether or not she's good without her mom giving her good as a statement. So really, it's letting our daughters know what our critical thinking is around them. We see them a certain way, but why do we see them that way? That's very important to deliver to them. In closing, you saw it. Meg and her mom had an excellent relationship. It was so heartwarming to watch. And their biggest conflict honestly occurred after Holly died. It was that Megan was totally unprepared for her death and didn't know how to navigate the world without her. As a therapist who specializes in this kind of work, my therapy sessions with Megan would focus on strengthening her internal voice, helping her learn to make critical decision-making skills and use that thought process that her mom obviously had. And then also making sure that she understands the why behind who she is. So yes, you're great. Yes, you're talented. Yes, you're amazing. Yes, you kill every performance. But what actually is going into the recipe of that? What are we looking for? What are we analyzing so that she could actually be her own go-to, and she doesn't have to look to the world for those kinds of things. It's very clear that even with an unfinished recipe, Megan has what it takes to survive, to thrive, and to prosper. And that means that Holly deserves a job well done. So I would actually rate these two on the conflict, wounding, and trauma scale, which you can learn more about below, as conflict, because like I said, their conflict happened after their death, and it was because Megan was unprepared. Make sure you check the description box below so that you can find out what your mother-daughter conflict, wounding, and trauma score is. And also you can read more about the differences between what it means to have a conflict with your mom, a mother wound, and also mother-daughter trauma. I'll see you next time. Bye.